the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Oh, let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready. Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
Boom.
I gotta stop watching you do things, because then we're both always looking over here, and we're like, oh yeah, it's so interesting. I don't need to be watching over there. We're professionals.
So interesting.
We can do this.
I will say in the next version of the studio, Salt of the Street Studio 5.0 or something like that at this point.
At least
the monitoring TV will be directly behind the cameras.
That will be nice. So we can just look here.
That way I don't have to.
That will be nice.
Okay, we're good. Well, hey, we're live.
Yes, yeah,
welcome, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Salt of the Streets pre-show live for episode 111. My name is Donovan. This is Bjorn.
Hello, Bjorn.
Someone came into work this week. Cookie came into work this week.
Cookie.
To get adjusted by Dr. Plum, right? There's a chiropractor in my work that comes in every Tuesday to adjust all the people in the building. That's like one of the perks that we get.
He's a dope dude.
Because we stand all day. Yes, Dr. Plum is pretty cool, and we went to school with some of his kids. I went to school with some of his kids. So Cookie came in, and she saw the picture of you as a Viking that's up on the wall there where Shay used to work, because Tyler works there now and didn't take anything down. So
over in the corner?
The whole wall of shame that Shay put up is still, the whole thing is
there. Oh, snap.
Plus
so Bjorn's there.
Yeah, he's still there. Okay, so fuck Cookie and Ryan, because they're standing there.
You need to explain to people what it is that you're saying.
Okay, so at my work...
And I'll pour the shots.
Yes, thank you very much. Shay is a man that I used to work with, and he still comes in occasionally. When he worked in my department, he had a whole wall that he called the Wall of Shame that was horrible sport. It started as horrible sports players. Like, it was all people who were just terrible at playing sports, but still were on professional teams. And then it started expanding to pictures that he had photoshopped to include other people, and he had like 3 or 4 that had Aaron in them, you know. He had photoshopped like Aaron's face into a football helmet, and like his tattoos onto like the player's arm and shit like that. And it was really fucking funny.
Yes.
And then you had the haircut, the Viking-esque whatever style haircut, like long on the top and then shaved on the sides, and you and him were always talking about hardcore history and shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
And the Visigoths and the whatever, you know.
Visigoths and the Ostrogoths.
Exactly, yeah. And so he ended up making a Photoshop picture of Colin that's a person who's dressed as a Viking, but he Photoshopped Colin's head onto it.
It was literally the character Bjorn from the show Vikings.
That's what it was, yes.
Yep.
And then after that, they were calling you Bjorn, like
Yeah.
pretty much until you stopped working there.
Yeah.
And fucking
That was
forgot
1,000% okay with it.
forgot all about that. And so Cookie and Ryan came up and were asking about that. And then he also has the picture of 2 nuns that are drinking beers.
Oh, I'm trying to
Do you remember? It's 2 nuns. They're like a hockey game or something, and they're in their uniforms. Their habit is what they're called, right? And they're drinking beers. And so it's one nun who's like who's fairly large, and then one like normal. She's short, but she's like normal in stature, and she's got glasses on. The smaller lady does, and the bigger lady doesn't. So fucking Ryan, I get brought into this conversation because he comes over and he says, "What game were you and Colin at that you guys were dressed like nuns?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What?" And he said,
"Excuse me,
"What-"
sir?"
Yes, he said,
"Excuse me?"
What sports game did you guys go to that you guys were dressed like nuns? And I was like, that's not me or Colin. I'm like, that's, first of all, it's 2 women. Fucking first of all, it's 2 women, right? Second of all, that woman is obese and the other woman is tiny. So what is going on here? That's how they involved me in this conversation. and I was only standing maybe 5 feet away. And then the next day, I went to go and grab a sheet from that stack right there. So I'm standing real fucking close to it, and I'm looking at just how big this first woman is and just how small this other woman is. And the fucked up thing is that Ryan has said something to the effect of like, yes, like in the chin line, like I can see it like in the jawline. Fuck you! Fuck you in the jawline, Ryan! Yeah, that's how I got brought into this. So fuck Cookie and fuck Ryan, because apparently we both look like old fucking nuns.
Well, you know what you need for that, my friend.
Yes, this
shot.
is, what is this? This is the Eagle Rare Kentucky
Rare.
Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
Amen, brother.
We've started the last couple episodes with a shot. It just seems like the right way to go.
Amen. Cheers.
Happy to be here. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Woo! That's pretty nice.
That one hit the back of the throat.
It's definitely there. You know about it.
Yep. Oh, so first, before we get rolling, I want to give my boy William Wallace shout out in the chat.
That's a great name. That's his real name?
Yeah, it's his real name.
Good for you, bro.
William Wallace.
Good for you.
Oh, bro, you got to tell me, what's the line again? Shooting fireballs from your eyes and from Braveheart.
Oh, I
He's
don't
like,
know.
if William Wallace was here to be shooting fireballs from his eyes and something out of his arse. I don't quite remember.
I don't know. But he'll probably know.
He'll let us know.
Yeah. Shout out William Wallace. Shout out Zeke. Shout out everybody.
Also, anybody in here that's in the chat there, let us know if you got a notification that we went live today. Because I just checked my phone, and once again, I didn't get a notification that we were live.
Interesting.
So that'll be a fun topic of conversation that we'll weave into later on.
It's the weird small things like that. You see a lot of... Let me start a real sentence here. So, around the time that, like, Dr. Seuss was happening, like, those books are being pulled and things like that, right? You start to see a lot of memes and shit like that on the internet of, like, you know, you're not being canceled or, like, you're not shadow banned. People just don't like your content, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, oh, that's so fucking funny. Like, that's hilarious. Like, that's, you know, that's hilarious. But then when you have, like, 300 plus likes or whatever on Facebook, and then you post something and 2 weeks goes by and 40 people have seen it.
Yeah.
For what reason has this only come up on 40 timelines? Because that's not interactions. That's not people fucking with it.
No.
That's how many people have seen it over the last 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, especially if we're only posting every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's going to come to the top of your feed because we're never fucking posting. Right?
Exactly. But
it's a very odd thing. Right?
Whether it's 40 down from 300, I mean, it's a standard metric that is able to be tracked and followed, and we do. And when we have a drop off from an average of, between 300 to 1,000, insights or whatever you call those things.
Yeah.
On all of our posts, pretty much standard, you can easily and obviously see the ones that are dropped down. And it doesn't matter if you have, Brett Weinstein, when he first, we'll get into more of that topic during the main show, but when he first kind of started to get his channel struck and videos brought down and stuff like that, he made a really nice post on Twitter about it. Tried to start a trending hashtag about, stopping censorship. And I posted on there, it's like, it's from the largest creators, the largest voices to the smallest voices. Censorship is still censorship, and it's almost more dangerous that you silence 1,000 tiny voices than you do one big voice. And it's the same problem.
Yeah.
And everybody's dealing with it now. Anybody that's in this space has to deal with it in some fashion. Whether you can stick underneath the radar for however long is kind of up to everybody else, but at some point it will come for you if you're saying the no words on the YouTubes.
This is going to be one of the many topics that we go over this week. We got a grab bag show for you.
Grab bag!
It's going to be fantastic. So we're going to talk about censorship, obviously, specifically in the case of Brett Weinstein and, Pierre Corey.
I've been calling him like Perry Corey.
And
that's dumb.
So they made a reappearance after their initial conversation on Brett Weinstein's channel was taken down.
Yep.
They made an appearance on Joe Rogan earlier than they had already planned so they could try and get that information out into the world.
Joe called it an emergency podcast.
Yeah, and after that happened, I texted you and I was like, is Joe Rogan the only person who cannot be canceled? Because at this point, Spotify has so much money invested into that. It doesn't make sense for them to be like, no, you can't do that.
Yep.
And there's got to be some clause in there in his contract that's like, I literally get to do whatever I want because it's my fucking show, and it's been that way for 10 years.
Yep.
And he has enough personal capital at this point, that he could run the show for free on his own.
Yeah, which he's talked about before. But I would say I think there's evidence to the fact that he might be uncancelable, because when he first made the move over to Spotify, there was the group of employees at Spotify that did that letter and stuff and tried to essentially say, well, we're uncomfortable with this. We shouldn't be doing this as a company.
Yeah.
And they basically told him, like, all right, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's fine. Moving on. And Joe apparently just doesn't even hear that kind of stuff. So that's good.
That's very good.
He's had a string of good shows lately.
He's doing a great job.
He is.
So that'll be one of the things that we talk about. We're going to talk about the Biden-Putin summit this week, and some of the conversations, the press conferences that happened, some takeaways, some things like that. We're going to be talking...
Old in chief, if you will.
Yes.
I'm going to have to bring that up.
We are going to talk about HR 1. Right?
Yes.
You said you want to go over HR 1. I don't really know shit about HR 1.
I feel like we might have touched on it.
We talked about it at least a little bit.
When it first passed the House a long time ago.
Admittedly, I felt so unconfident about it passing, I didn't even invest time in learning about it, because I thought it was a waste of my time.
It's like, no, this is blatantly unconstitutional. We're not going to talk about it. I thought it was a waste of my time.
So I didn't even learn about it. It's
narrow. I mean, it is a very narrow path forward, but it's still very, like, it could go either way, and it's kind of terrifying to think that all of our voting rights might essentially be unconstitutionally withdrawn from the states. But hey.
So we're going to talk about that. We are also going to talk about some announcements that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland did on guns and crime.
The old Cannon argument came back up.
Yes, which is just...
dumb, ignorant.
Tired and dumb. And we are also going to talk probably a little bit about the first trans Olympian. I watched a really great podcast from Benjamin A. Boyce that I think I sent to you. I may or may not have sent to you. That was with a coach, can't tell you what her name was, from Canada, who used to be an Olympic athlete and now is like a private trainer for track and field.
I did not get to that.
No, that's fine. Extremely interesting. I would 1,000% recommend it. She talked a lot about the different regulations for trans people in Canada in Olympic competition, and then how that leaked over into the equivalency of the NCAA. So let's just talk about that now. We'll just make it a pre-show topic, right?
Sure.
So we have...
Because we have movement from the Biden administration on this as well.
Which I did not know about, but
I'm going to bring it up for you.
So we have the first trans athlete who is admitted into the Olympics, right?
Laurel Hubbard.
Laurel Hubbard is her name.
On the New Zealand team.
Yes, from New Zealand. A man transitioned to a woman who's now going to lift in the women's competition. I don't...
40 years old, or 43 years old, been competing professionally for... I think it was 20 years. And
competed in men's lifting, right? And now is competing in women's lifting. So,
yes.
Obviously
so that's a thing.
Obviously very controversial. This same woman, I think, when she was going for the Olympics, this has already come up before, right? I remember hearing about this woman before. A long time ago.
I'm trying to see, because there had a past. We're trying to qualify in the New Zealand men's competitions, I guess you'll say, the brackets. Because the way, Olympic athletes are found is through this massive conglomeration of all these, I don't know, they're like semi-pro athletics and stuff. It gets weird when you're talking about like track and field and lifting. Like all these different
organizations.
Yeah,
that whole different competitions, and some of them are registered to qualify you for the Olympics, and then there are like the legitimate, Olympic trials that you have to compete in when you're actually going to be in the Olympics. So you're saying Laurel Hubbard was unable to qualify in the men's division?
Yeah, for a long time, and then inevitably sustained an injury back in 2018, and then has been recovering from that and has been able to come back to where she is now. 2019, she won a gold medal at the Pacific Games in Samoa, beating an athlete from the host nation, which triggered the initial outrage.
No shit.
I wonder why.
I mean,
I wonder why.
I'm sure a lot of people would call this racist, but I know a lot of Samoan women who would probably fucking outlift me. So I can imagine being fucking livid.
Oh yeah, because with the quiet part that you're not allowed to say out loud on YouTube is that essentially this is, how would I want to phrase this? It's somewhat of an erasure of the protection of women athletes.
And there are many, many, many female athletes, including this coach who was interviewed by Benjamin Boyce. I'm going to pull up that link so that I can use her name instead of just saying that female coach. But including her, who, like I said, competed in the Olympics for Canada, and is now a professional coach for track and field for the events that she competed in. And I will say there are actual guidelines as far as the Olympic Committee is concerned about.
Linda Blade.
Linda Blade. Yeah, her name is Linda Blade, and she was a professional Olympian. I bet there's... Yeah, so she's on Twitter. She's also wrote a book called Unsporting, that is about this particular issue. And so...
The End of Women's Sports with Coach Linda Blade on YouTube.
That is what the episode is called. It was a great episode, extremely informative. I don't think that in my opinion,
link is in the chat.
Excellent. That's the link in the chat for the episode of the Voice of Reason that I am talking about. I actually think that this is from a series that he does called Calmversations.
Calmversations.
He's very punny,
he's so
this
good.
one. Yeah, he's very funny.
You could tell he used to, because he was a student of Brett, right?
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure.
I don't know that he was a student of Brett's. I know that he went to Evergreen, but I don't know whether or not he actually was a student of Brett's.
Well, if he spent any time with him, because Brett's like a pun machine.
Yeah. So I don't think, in my opinion, the particulars of Laurel Hubbard are very important, right? I think that really the important thing is the potential side effects that could come from this, right? And
by side effects, you mean...
Side effects is not the word that I'm looking for, but
like
that's
the downstream effects.
Yes.
Within the competitions,
and
within
yeah,
sports?
and a lot of this, in my opinion, has to do with like that number around like the nanomoles and things like that, especially when Linda Blade was talking about, right? She was talking about this number, the 10
nanomoles per liter.
In regards to trans women competing in the women's divisions, right? They have to get their testosterone levels under 10 nanomoles per liter. And
for at least 12 months
for at least a year prior to the first competition. Yep. Steven Crowder did some math saying, I don't know whether or not it's true, so I'm not going to, I have no reason to believe that it's not, because he could get in a lot of trouble for saying false shit at this point. Yeah. But I don't know for certain that it's true, because I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a scientist. I don't know how the math works.
I don't even know what a nanomole looks like, man. I'm sorry.
No, so Steven Crowder saying that 10 nanomoles per liter is equal to what a male would call low T. Like if you have 10 nanomoles per liter, then it's very low for a male, then you would go and you would get testosterone supplements. So his point was that it's at the upper levels of what you would expect a female athlete to have. And Linda Blade made this same exact point, that she said the standard or average level of testosterone for a female athlete to have in their body was 2.5 to 3 nanomoles per liter in their body.
Okay,
right?
And I remember this now because he was talking about the differences in
nanomoles
in
and
measurements.
exactly.
Yeah, because they're doing nanommoles per liter, nanomoles per liter, and our general low T measurements in men is nanograms per deciliter.
Yes.
And I'm not going to try to figure out that conversion.
And that's what I'm saying. So I can't attest for certain whether or not his conversion is correct. I don't have any reason not to believe him, but I am also not going to be like, Steven Crowder fucking blah, 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 right? So anyway, so there you go.
Okay, here we go. So yeah, just doing the cursory Google for male low T N-mole levels is saying anywhere between, so the normal range is from 9.2 to 31.8 nanomoles per liter.
And you have to be, if you're going to be a female athlete, trans female athlete competing in the women's division, has to be under 10 for a year.
Which is
the
slightly normal. Yes. That is on the low normal for a healthy male.
I'm going to say it's an unhealthy male because that's so low.
It's low.
Because 9.2 to 31,
it's
right?
A big
31
range.
Is probably for someone who's lifting all the time, some shit like that, So an average normal is probably in the middle, 20 to 25.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
About 10 times lower in females with normal levels, quote unquote normal levels,
10
considered
times.
to be 0.3 to 2.4 nanomoles per liter.
Okay, so Linda Blade is saying yes, that female athletes generally sit 2.5 to 3 nanomoles per deciliter, right?
Yep.
So Laurel Hubbard, any other female, because I don't think the Laurel Hubbard really particularly matters in this thing like this, the particulars of her case. It's really the larger...
larger implications.
Yes, implications. Thank you. That is what the fuck I was looking for.
We're always about the implications.
The issue that I found with it, right, is that Laurel Hubbard, any other trans athlete, just has to be under 10, right? But if any female athlete were to try and do anything to get up to 10, they would be immediately disqualified and potentially banned from the sport because they're doping.
Yep.
Right? And Linda Blade's specific point, and really pointed point, was that all of these athletes, the trans athletes, are doping. Whether you want to call it that or you don't want to call it that, that's what's being done here. Artificially affecting their hormone levels to allow them to compete at these particular divisions, which is not fair to the other athletes in that division.
You would certainly imagine.
In no world.
Base logic would say that's unfair, isn't it?
So,
if you're using nanomoles per liter as a threshold.
Another example that she brought up was in rugby, because there is a trans rugby player, a male to female trans person that was playing in the female division of rugby, I think in New Zealand, I think. And the international rugby organization was like, we can't do that. We can't have it in the international competition. It's too dangerous. Like, they did big studies of like the difference in power of punching and hitting and things like that between men and females. And I think the number that Linda Blade used was that an athletic male can punch 160% harder than an athletic female. There are marked differences there that have to be accounted for when you're talking about physical interaction between two athletes, right?
Yes.
So the international rugby coalition, whatever they're called, said that we are not going to allow trans athletes to compete in cross divisions because it's too fucking dangerous. It's not safe for other people. Said individual nations can do whatever they want. We're not going to tell you that you can't do it. And she said that was like a throwaway thing to help save face with the rest of the world. But that at some point, you have to recognize a difference there because it's not safe for these people to compete, right?
Yeah, at one point, the conversation won't be about powerlifting. It won't be about track and field events. It'll be about the NFL, and it'll be about a severe contact sport like rugby. Obviously, we're not going to have that conversation here in America because we don't care about rugby, but like NFL, NBA, like eventually those conversations that are starting in the track and field are going to be up to that level, and then there's going to be real life deleterious consequences.
Yeah, and so
I mean, there are real life deleterious consequences now. They're just on a much more decentralized arena.
And one of my concerns is how far this could continue to go, because one of the things that Linda Blade was talking about, she lives in Canada, right? She's saying that I believe it was the Olympics Commission in Canada who adopted a set of rules in according to trans athletes that said that they wouldn't be tested, they wouldn't be questioned, and that they could compete in cross sports. So you could compete as a male in one sport and a female in another sport, right? These guidelines were adopted by the equivalent of the NCAA in Canada. So in collegiate athletics in Canada, you can compete as a male in one sport and a female in another sport in the very next season.
It's so Canadian.
With no question. And if you question it, you could go to fucking prison because of C-16.
Yep.
And this was
hate speech.
Yes. Yes. You are discriminating against that athlete if you try and deny them their right? Because it's human rights.
Mm-hmm.
To deny them their right to compete in men's football, and then I don't know what the next sport is. Football is the only sport I play, so I don't know what the next seasons are. But I don't know, track and field or fucking something. Which just doesn't. I don't understand how this makes anything equal or equitable. Even that doesn't. That's not equity.
It's not equitable.
That's definitely not equitable.
No, it's called the erasure of women.
That's
what it's called. I would just thought experiment for a minute.
Yes.
I want to draw a Venn diagram between two different individuals.
Okay.
One of which is Nathan Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada.
Yes.
And the other one is, I don't remember his first name. I want to say Rodrigo or Duterte.
Yeah,
from
Rodrigo
Philippines.
Duterte.
How big is the overlap in that Venn diagram between those two people? It's rather, I would venture to guess it's rather large. They're both authoritarians who use the power of the state to get their will done, passed across the people. They are saying what you can and can't say, what you must and mustn't do.
I believe it was
and
Duterte
at the end of the day, you still end up in jail for it.
He said he was going to put shots in people's butts, right? That was
Duterte. He was going to bring them to their nasty prisons and put shots in their butts.
So he said the jails are terrible because the people who work in the jails are lazy and
they
don't like to clean them.
They don't like to clean. So you need to go get vaccinated or I'm going to throw you in prison.
And put a shot in your butt.
And then in Canada, you have Trudeau saying the same exact thing.
That's awesome.
You can't go to church or we'll throw you in prison because...
That's very interesting.
I mean, Trudeau is basically Duterte, but instead of holding a gun, he's holding a daisy.
He's the authoritarian right as opposed to the authoritarian left.
Yes. Yep. And they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's scary to see because it's being so openly embraced everywhere, and we just see it. We see the same fundamental attacks against freedom from both sides of the political aisle. One from the left up in Canada and one from the right over in the Philippines. But if you really look at their commonalities, they are so similar. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
So food for thought there.
So, needless to say, something that we'll be watching, something
we're and actually, I was going to bring up before we move and kind of end this thing, we did have some language from the Biden Education Department on Wednesday.
Title IX, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Title IX speaks to
college athletics.
Yeah, college athletics and the requirement for there to be men's and women's divisions and
Equal funding for both and things like that.
Equal access. It's competitive equity or equality in sports.
Yes.
And other things. But yeah, they said that what's his name? The Education Department Secretary Miguel Cordera said the department is going to be doubling down on its efforts in Title IX. We just want to double down on our expectations as to the removing of the Trump-era policy that eliminated Title IX protections for trans athletes. And so they are going to be opening Title IX to trans athletes, which will then make it illegal to discriminate against trans athletes in college-level sports and so on and so forth.
When I was in high school, I don't remember why, but there was a high school kid, a male, who wanted to play on a female team and was told no. And it did not obviously escalate into even a court case that stayed within the school. But I remember kind of the rule being set that you could only play. And I'm not saying this is the right way to go. I'm just comparing and contrasting. I don't at all. I think there's obviously some happy medium in between the two. Right. But when I was in school, it was you could only play on the opposite team if there wasn't an equivalent sport for your gender.
Okay.
So there wasn't a men's volleyball team, and shit like that. So if you really wanted to play volleyball, you could play on the female volleyball team because we didn't have a men's volleyball team, things like that. I think if you really wanted to play baseball, I think you could play baseball instead of softball if you wanted. There were things. Again, I'm not saying that's the right way to go.
It's definitely slightly more nuanced.
I graduated high school in 2013, so that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. But it was still long enough ago that it's a totally different landscape today.
Yes, and then when I think maybe you were working in Benning at the time. If not, then you had just stopped working there. And Casey's little sister was in high school, and she was playing tennis, and there was a male to female trans person, or who identified as female because they were still in high school, who was going to play women's tennis. And this was controversial between the parents and some of the other students, and many of the students didn't particularly care. And I was of the mindset then, and still am now, that if the other athletes don't care, then go for it.
Yeah.
But if it's going to cause a problem, it's in high school athletics, if it's going to let them do what they want to do, if no one cares, then no one cares. But if it's going to be an issue because someone is extremely competitive, or they're really trying to go for scholarship or some shit like that, and this is going to fuck with that, then you can't do that, right?
Yeah, if anything, it's a really troubling territory for, say, we'll just pick a stereotypically disadvantaged group, high school age minority women, who might be coming up from a tough area or something like that, and their only way to get into college is going through that scholarship route, which is very common for anybody in the lower class, really. You try to strive to be the best at something so that you can get a scholarship, because that's the only way you're going to get up the money to go to school.
Yeah.
Well, now you just removed, for one, the incentive for a lot of people, because they say, well, I'm not going to be able to compete against that, so I'm not even going to try. Or you're just somebody that's going to sit there and fight tooth and nail, and ultimately might not be able to get over that last hurdle if the trans tennis player in this particular case looks like Laurel Hubbard. It might be kind of difficult.
And we're seeing more and more. I'm not saying that it's an epidemic or anything, but certainly over the last few years, more and more instances of that, of high school athletes, women in particular, losing out on scholarships because a trans athlete has come in and beat them out for their spot. And it's almost instantaneously defeated and can't go any further because it's covered under Title IX.
Yeah.
We don't know what to tell you. This person is going to compete in this division, and this is how it is,
Yep.
And I think that it goes without saying, especially if you've listened to this show for any period of time, we don't have an issue, trans people, trans rights, or anything like that on this show. And I didn't tell you this, but we're going to open up at least I'm going to open up the show, or the proper show, by talking about a little bit why we're here, a little why we're doing this show, and a little bit of things what we stand for. And one of the things that we stand for is liberty for all people.
Amen.
Freedom and liberty for all people. I don't care what you want to do. I don't care if you want to identify as anything else, if you want to do whatever. When you're decisions and your life choices begin to affect other people's personal liberty, other people's personal freedoms, that's when we have an issue. That's the only time I have an issue with really anything anybody's doing, on very limited circumstances where I'm really going to give a fuck that you're doing something that doesn't affect me. And I can't list them now because I couldn't think of them, right?
Yeah.
Me or somebody else, right?
Well, in this particular situation, I'll say that I would imagine you'll agree with this point, that if there is a trans athlete at the high school level that is competing, doing the best they absolutely can, and is striving for a scholarship and trying to, crawl into that space and try to become something on a professional athletic level, I think they should absolutely be able to do that. How we implement that on terms so that we can all, have a more equal competitive landscape. Equal.
It's very...
Yes, as far as competition goes, that becomes a serious conversation that needs to be had, because
and it needs to be had honestly.
Yes, and it needs
honestly.
An honest conversation needs to be had, because
with
I
athletes
would like
and coaches and scientists, professional athletes, professional coaches, professional doctors, people who know about these things, not fucking regular doctors who are helping kids transition to another gender. Those are not to say they don't have a seat at the table, but those are not the only people that should be being consulted on whether or not we allow children to transition and allow them to do other things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially in sports.
Yep. And we need the input of what the left would commonly refer to these days as the stakeholders. We need the people in competition now that are being affected by this. We need to know what they're thinking, what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. We need to look at the statistics behind the wins, the losses, all those things too, to figure out, I would like that maybe in a few years, maybe we can have a whole new sect of trans athletes in the division of trans athletes throughout every major sport that is happening. The problem is, in real life implementation, there needs to be X number of people in competition so that a proper competition can be had, and it gets harder because, for example, I don't know, lacrosse.
Yeah.
On the West Coast is nothing like lacrosse on the East Coast. If you really want to get into competitive lacrosse, you're going to be traveling a lot to partake in national competitions like that, because there's just not that many. When you're talking about football, basically it's ubiquitous throughout the entire United States.
Baseball.
And odds are baseball's a great one, even soccer. Odds are there is a local organization that you could be a part of to eventually participate in that broader scale competition. It just is different for every single sport.
Yeah.
So that was a longer conversation than I had anticipated. That was very good, though.
Yeah, no, I think that is good. And there's only two small things that I want to hit on. I want to talk about Cam, but we'll talk about that in the regular show.
Okay. I'll say there was another story recently about another trans athlete. I'll pull it up here real quick from CBS News, who actually was just barred from competition in the athletic trials. Because, let's see here, I just had it. So Cece Teffler is a transgender woman who won the NCAA title in the 400-meter hurdles in 2019, has been unable to participate in the next. She's ineligible to participate in the trials due to her testosterone levels, which for this particular division, the USATF, they have a different standard than like the Olympic Committee.
Okay.
And their standard is athletes' testosterone levels must be less than 5 nanomoles per liter for a period of at least 12 months. So that's half.
Which, from what I understand, is probably a little closer to.
And so it's interesting that on a lower level of competitive in competition, there is a higher standard at a certain point than once you make the jump up to the IOA level or IOC level.
That's very interesting.
Isn't it? I thought so. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
I totally accidentally, because I was typing it in, and I accidentally went to your personal camera, so I got your thinking face the whole time. Like,
nice. It's a treat for you guys.
So yeah, that's food for thought there too. It's another thing to look at is every one of these separate divisions will probably have their own requirements that must be met beforehand.
Which will be difficult,
Yeah. Because none of these things are centralized.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of the United States,
right? And that's what we were just talking about, like when we were talking about the rugby, right? That the International Rugby Coalition was like, you can't do that here, but whatever you do in your home country is fine. We don't.
You guys make the rules there. We have our own international rules.
That's very interesting.
So food for thought.
The last thing that I wanted to make sure that we hit on here was Location Skate Shop today is holding a skate competition, SK8, at, I believe that it's at just the Bremerton Skate Park, down in West Bremerton over by the Y. So go there today if you're in Bremerton. If you want to win some cool swag, there you go. That first post there will tell you all about it. So
it's on their Instagram.
Yep, it's on their Instagram. So yeah, they are going to be at the skate park having an SK8 competition. I say that because
I have that shirt, and you have that shirt.
Yeah. So they're holding a skate competition. Go there, win some prizes.
Fabulous prizes.
Oh, and it's actual skate. I thought they were going to play SK8. That's very common. It's for kids to play SK8, but they're going to play a full game of skate.
Information for tomorrow's game of skate, SKATE. Register.
There you go.
Will be from 1 o'clock till 1:45. Contest starts at 2 o'clock. So you still got time. Get down there.
So go.
Don't do that. Stay here, but
just watch this at the same time.
There you go.
You got unlimited
Pull it up
data.
on your phone.
Fine. Yeah. So go down there, go to Location Skate Shop. They also
and their website's up.
Have those decks that they have on their Instagram. Go back to their Instagram real quick.
Instagram.
That second post. Those are decks specifically for their shop. We have to buy one.
That looks so dope.
We have to buy one to put on the wall.
1,000%.
They're so fucking sick.
They are
so
sick.
Go to Location Skate Shop. I don't think they're even open today because of the competition. But they're going to have some stuff, a little, they call it satellite shop there at the skate park. So go
nice.
there, play skate your fucking heart out. It was just Go Skate Day like last week or 2 weeks ago. It's excellent. So go there. Go win some prizes. If you need a haircut, go down to Swell Blended. Colin has it here.
Shout out Paul. Come your way.
He's booked out because he's getting fucking... He's doing amazing right now.
He's doing amazing.
Yeah. So go there, schedule a haircut.
Look at
get done
those.
Yeah.
I certainly will be very, very soon.
Yes.
All right. So I think that does it for the pre-show, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to thank everybody for joining us on the YouTube. Obviously, we'll be back here in just a few minutes for the regular show. We have our social media, Salt of the Streets on Instagram, Salt of the Streets on Facebook. Fuck Facebook. We have our own personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both those things. You can find all of this information on saltofthestreets.com. I believe that is everything. YouTube, Salt of the Streets. That's really it. We'll see you guys in just a little bit. Thank you very much for being here.
We'll probably be out for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back with the full-on live show for episode 111. 111. All right. Later, guys.